are very, very, the chamber is doing its best to keep the business dialogue going between India and Canada amongst the business communities and the key stakeholders. So I'm very privileged and very pleased to welcome, we have two very honorable guests with us, Shri Suresh Prabhu, former Minister for Commerce, and presently Sherpa for the business, for the Prime Minister's, on behalf of the Prime Minister for the G20 Summit, and Minister Vic Fedeli, Minister of Trade, Economic Relations and Job Creation from Government of Ontario, Canada. All the three sectors that you cover, Minister, are very pertinent to today's problems, and we will cover them in greater detail as we go on. Let me start with giving you a little bit on Shri Prabhu. So, Mr. Suresh Prabhu has an enriching background in economic reforms and has been a strong advocate on policy development and implementation. He's presently, as I said, plays a special role of Honorable Prime Minister Sherpa to the G20 Summit. He has also, apart from being the Minister of Commerce for India, he has held important portfolios in the past in railways and environment and power. But what I would like to specially mention today is what he has been doing in these troubled times. So whether it is the marketing of cashews or it is the marketing of Alfonso mangoes from the state that he represents, they had been stuck with these with both cashew nuts and Alfonso mangoes and had no way to transport it out, and the manufacturers were really suffering as a result of this. Due to his efforts with the government, with the transportation, logistics, they were able to market their products, and this has been a great respite to them. There were also more than, I think, 4,000 fishermen from his state which was stranded in Gujarat. And again, after speaking to both the ministries, I think he got them back to their home state. So these are these are activities that are so needed at this time. And then later on, he described it as saying that these activities are very soul satisfying. So I find that a tremendous initiative, and I thank the Minister, Mr. Suresh Prabhu, for having been involved with these activities. And he's very active on WhatsApp, so we get to know exactly what he's doing every day. Every day there's a story to tell. So thank you for that, Minister. Minister Vic Fedeli has been, of course, Minister, as I said, for Trade and Job Creation and Economic Affairs. Besides his political career, which is very impressive, of course, but he has been representing North Bay for 2 terms as Mayor of North Bay. But apart from that, he has been a business entrepreneur and has led Fedeli Corporation as, I think, one of the 34th among 50 as the best places to work. So this is a very important aspect, and I'm very pleased to tell you about this because he understands the business community, the challenges that we are facing today. How are we going to overcome these challenges? So this is, now in today's light with this pandemic, how do we keep, people positive? How do we keep them committed, positive, and, keep the dialogue going between India and Canada? And therefore, I'm grateful to both of you. And may I now request Minister Vic Fedeli to say a few words. After that, I will come to Honorable Shri Suresh Prabhu to say a few words, and then we will take some questions. I hope that is okay, and we can ask Minister Fedeli to please begin.
Well, good evening, everyone in India, and good morning to all of those here in Canada as well. Nadira, thank you very much, and thank you to the ICBC for putting this together this morning. Honorable Suresh Prabhu, it's an honor to meet you through this Zoom conference today, and I truly look forward to the chance when we're together face to face and sharing a cup of tea. I will confess right off the bat, I helped your economy last night. My wife put out a beautiful plate of cashews last night, and so it helped to settle me and before I went to bed. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And to all who are here, thank you for your great work in getting each of our respective countries and constituents through this COVID-19. It just feels, Nadira, it feels like yesterday when
Yes.
we were at your panel session. I can see the smile on your face now.
Yes.
When we talked about bilateral trade in New Delhi. We talked about positioning Canada's regional strengths. And I was alongside Saskatchewan's Minister Harrison in Mumbai. These were just really, truly great opportunities. But let's just talk very quickly right around in Ontario and worldwide, as in India. COVID-19 has far-reaching economic impacts. I have to say it's uniting us as a global community like never before. I've never seen this, and it's just so wonderful and so important. We've all seen layoffs and declines in production and in sales, and so much uncertainty, yet here we are, we still have two vibrant economies, but plenty of concerns for our citizens. So just to give you a quick reference, here in Ontario, like in India, we have ordered that only essential businesses can remain open. So we have, there's varying degrees of what means an essential business in Canada from province to province. But here in Ontario, we've made our list. For the most part, manufacturing and global supply chain remained open. Anything to do with healthcare, food, putting water into your home, which means chemical plants needed to be open, so we make clean water. So water, food, a roof over your head. We've closed down construction except for healthcare, food, and any residential that already had a building permit, because we want a roof over your head. So that just gives you some of the kind of parameters, Nadira, that we use. I'll just take another moment then. Premier Ford, our premier, we stood together when he said, today we have to do the unthinkable. And that was when we shut down and contracted our economy. We had made an essential business list, but we saw the curve still rising. So we contracted it from 74 essential businesses to 44. And that really was the unthinkable, but necessary. And so we are not out of the woods yet, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. We've seen the curve flatten. Yesterday we had 4 out of 5 days that the number is markedly declining of new cases. So we know that we're now launching our framework for the recovery, and we're now starting as early as in the next day or so, we could see some areas start to open up. I think that's everything I wanted to say, except for, I know we'll talk about it throughout this chat, but our partnership with India is so vital to our economy. And we're really looking forward, Honorable Prabhu, to talk about this. What's not changed through all of this is our commitment to building bridges, not barriers, with India and with trade globally. So we'll continue to talk more specifically with the specific questions, but we can talk about what's coming up in the days, weeks, and months ahead, and then how we can work together in the longer term. So thank you for this opportunity to elaborate.
Thank you so much, Minister Vidali. And yes, we remember very fondly your visit to India, and you're honoring us with your presence at the annual convention, and you won the hearts of many on that day. As you said, I think the most important thing that we have today in our trade is people, and that has stood us in good stead. This is what we need at the moment, people and partnerships. Minister Prabhu, you were also with us for the last 2 years at our annual convention. You addressed, the first one was where you gave us the opening address, and the last time you gave the valedictory address. And we have a very close association with yourself, and very honored to have you have your guidance and advice on many things at the chamber. Could you please give us your perspectives on today's times and what India has been doing?
Thank you very much. And I really thank Minister Federally for being here today. And I fully agree that we have to meet face to face soon. And let me invite you for a meal when you are in India, so that we can spend a little longer time and discuss the strategies more in depth. I also thank Nadira for doing this great job not today alone, but for many, many years. And she has been doing a fantastic job to promote India-Canada business relationship through ICBC. And I know this is a platform which is so useful to the government, because I was as a Commerce Industry Minister, we have interacted so many times with all of you. Therefore, I really look forward to working with you. Let me briefly talk about this, because Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Trudeau had a telephonic talk only a few days ago. And my dear friend, the Foreign Minister of Canada, Mr. Champagne, I had sent him a message. So we are really in touch regularly so that we can find out a common ground of working together. Canada and India have always been at very good terms and very good business relationship, trade relationship. But particularly now, the world is changing and already changed so much that we really need to reinforce our relationships and redefine our priorities. I feel there are few areas in which Canada and India have always been working together, but we can do it more in the years to come. One is a high technology area. Canada is one of the top high technology producer in the world. It's definitely a G7 country, but more importantly, in terms of technology, it could be even the top 3 countries. Therefore, technology cooperation can happen now, because post-COVID, I think there's going to be a renewed focus on technology. As we all are working now from home, there's going to be a time when such off-site interactions will increase more, which will be technology driven in many forms, not just this is a Zoom, he's doing a great job, but I'm saying so many different platforms will emerge. Shop floors may be managed remotely. Offices will run from homes as we are doing today. Businesses will be transacted online. So things are going to change dramatically. So we need all kinds of technologies, and I think that's one area. Related to this in service sector, information technology, India offers a great potential for Canadians. I can very clearly see that because of economic viability of companies, they may be forced to use such integration of ICT, which will reduce the human interface as much as possible. So therefore, Indians can play a very big role in providing the ICT support. In financial services, I think there is a tremendous scope. Canada has huge pension funds. In fact, I met them when I was in, very recently, when I was in your city, and I'm in Toronto, and I met many of them, thanks to my colleague, my friend, then Ambassador Vivek Swarup, who came all the way from Ottawa. It was on the 14th of August last year, which I met all of them. It was a fantastic interaction. And I had organized a roundtable of all the foreign funds in Goa on 6th of December 2018, so that they can meet our startup community. So funds is one area in which I think we can work a lot, and there's capital is now going to be available plenty. Pension funds, of course, will have the capital, but a liquidity which is coming to the market because of $3 trillion the US itself is putting out as a package. Canada has put out a huge amount of money. So liquidity will increase, and because to get over the downturn, the central banks are reducing interest rates, so cheap money and lot of money will be available. India will be a very good candidate for investment. We can decide how can we work together on that. Because we want your capital to be protected. We want, you should not risk. The pension money is the absolutely zero risk money. It should be deployed in that particular way. We will be very happy to work with you to make that happen. Other area, and that's the manufacturing. I think India would be a very good destination for Canadian companies to look at manufacturing base because of a domestic market, but also because you can use it for re-export into some other geographies, particularly Asia. Because Asia is going to be the next big consumer of all industrial products in the world. And therefore, you can actually use India as a base. If you want to export east of India, we have a east coast. If you want to export west of India, we have a west coast and 7,600 kilometers of coastline. So you can actually make the use of that and can make on that. Other interesting area and very important area, in my opinion, is environment. Canada has specialized in environment and environment management. I was saying one day in Nadira's event, ICBC event, that actually the geospatial technology originally originated in Canada, the GIS and others. So we can actually now use for natural resource management is going to be a very important activity post-COVID because everybody is worried about the environment. So this is very area in which we can work together, which includes many things related to climate change, related to water, related to energy, related to land management, related to forestry, many things. But in that broad basket of environment, we can do a lot together. And because that limited time, I am just mentioning logistics. Canada is one of the best countries in terms of logistics because of its sheer size. Canada is more than 2.5 times of India and with very less population. Of course, that's a different thing. We are only 3% of India's population. But because of that vast landmass, you have a fantastic logistic industry. We have set up a new logistic division in the Ministry of Commerce. Thanks to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's decision, we can actually work with logistic companies from Canada and experience. And that's why Mr. Champagne, who was earlier when he was the trade minister, we used to work very closely with each other. Now he has become your foreign minister. We used to discuss trade promotion between India and Canada. So that is another area we can work together. There are many more I can add, but I'm sure there is limited time. But I can tell you one thing, and that's a commitment from India that we'd like to do more business with Canada. We welcome Canadian companies to come to India. I'm sure, as you always do, we welcome migrants from the immigrants from other countries to come to your country. And this Canada is one of the most open countries in the world, which keeps accepting the human capital from different parts of the world, which benefits them, benefits those who go there. So I think we'll be very happy to work with you at people to people, as Nadira said, but also to B2B. And of course, our relationship with G2G, government to government, is already good. So I think we can use all these platforms and promote this, but all these platforms finally converge on ICBC because she brings everybody on the same platform and therefore we can discuss these strategies together. So I really look forward to working with you. Minister, thank you very much. It's very early in the morning and therefore rightly so you mentioned about tea because that's the time to have a cup of tea. But we are late in the evening and Nadira just finished her dinner. So we really look forward to interacting with you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji, for that. And just to let you know that we are very privileged, Mr. Ajay Bisaria, who's the High Commissioner to Canada, the Indian High Commissioner to Canada, he has joined us. And, I think this is must be one of his most difficult postings, and he has had many challenging ones before that. So both Minister Vic Fideli and Minister Suresh Prabhu, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome Ajay Bisaria. And I don't know, Ajay, would you like to say a few words with both the ministers here, or would you like to just play an attendee for now? So I think probably Mr. Bisaria is here and he'll probably listen to us, but we will definitely.
Mr. Ajay Bisaria, as I know him, is my good friend. He's a man of action, so he will not speak, but he will act.
Yes, I think that is the key, and we have all our hopes pinned on him, and we will get him on one of our next webinars. So, Prabhuji, you mentioned a lot of sectors, amongst them the manufacturing, ICT, environment, logistics, etc. Another one that I've been thinking about, or we all have been thinking about, is the medical equipment and the healthcare system, because at this time. So I wanted both of you, First Minister Vic Fideli and then Minister Suresh Prabhu, to just for a couple of minutes, if you could just ponder on this, that when we mentioned the fabulous partnership in technology between India and Canada, and the one thing that is there is that there are a lot of domestic programs that have started for the new requirements, medical requirements in India, and Canada, of course, has a fabulous medical ecosystem. so are you foreseeing a good sustainable partnership to flatten the curve of this pandemic? What are your thoughts on this, Minister Fedeli?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this one. And thank you for your comments about, I took 2 pages of notes as you spoke. I'm not the best note taker, but it was fabulous, your overall take, Minister, over the priorities and how high tech is playing such a very key role. The fact that here we are meeting like this, I know we'll talk about it later, but it's just something that really overlays everything we're doing. But we welcome help from all businesses and all organizations, whether it's in the medical side, we'll call it life sciences overall. You know, the manufacturing of, I'm going to go this way if you don't mind, Nadir, the manufacturing of our personal protective equipment. We call it PPE here. This is something where we realize how little we actually made in Canada and made here in Ontario. And so that, if you don't mind, I'll talk specifically about that segment, Nadir, if that's okay. Okay. In that area, we have discovered that so few personal protective equipment pieces were made in Ontario, and we were scrambling, if you will, at first to begin to make them. And this is where the auto giants and the auto parts giants got together. And it almost sort of, I don't want to use the word in a bad way, but sort of like a war measures kind of thing. They came together. They're not making cars in Ontario for this period. So with their idle plants, you know, Ford is making face shields, the plastic face shields. Honda and a company, Sterling, are making face shields. Sterling, I think, is making 275,000 of them a week now. Auto parts giant Magna is now joined with other auto part giant Woodbridge, and they're making 1 million face masks a week. We've got Linamar, another auto parts maker, that is now making components for a company called O2. The government has ordered 10,000 ventilators from them. So it's a long way to say to you that we realized that we were beholden to places worldwide, and the shipments were not reliable. I'm sure they were all holding out for more, you know, for more opportunities elsewhere as well. So our goal now is to make as much in Ontario as we can for Ontario, for Canada, and for world export. And so we have put together Ontario Together. It's a website that we've had 17,000 responses to, 9,000 companies we've bought from, about 175 $1 million Canadian that we bought in masks and gowns just through our Ontario Together web portal. So if there is an opportunity for companies that want to, yes, manufacture in Ontario, we have a 50 million Canadian fund set aside, new money set aside to help companies retool or purchase new equipment to set up here. So I know I'm making a play, Honorable Minister, but you know, this is something we can be doing together. So that's kind of where we're headed, Nadir.
Thank you. That's a great initiative. Sir, any response to that?
Yeah, actually, it's a very important area where we can cooperate very effectively and for mutual benefit and for the rest of the world's benefit also. One area is just not medical equipment alone, but a broad basket of healthcare. Because there is going to be a renewed focus on healthcare globally. People had taken for granted certain things which they cannot do it anymore. So personal protection of each and every citizen is going to be very important. Like many countries are already putting regulation that you must wear a mask. So now it's unmasking of the market. We can see that so many new opportunities will emerge as a result of that. And therefore, I can see in healthcare generally, there is going to be, India can actually very good in formulations. We make one of the best drugs in the world. So we can actually collaborate on that. In fact, I know the Canadian government's priority is also to reduce cost of your healthcare system. And in that, medicine play a very key role, and we can actually do that. On equipments, particularly the medical equipment, medical devices, actually we can really work on that very clearly. Because India is not a 1.3 billion alone. We are large number of people who are actually senior citizens, like me. And therefore, they will obviously need lot of care, replacement of certain parts of the body, making sure that equipment is necessary for performing surgeries and many things. So and I know the new cutting edge technologies that are coming into, which can be clubbed into the broad category of medical devices. And I think all of that can put together will be a great opportunity. And therefore I can clearly see we would like to work together. Today, everybody is saying because oil has become $20 or less, we should make strategic reserves. I think the day is not far away when people will say, let's keep strategic reserve of medical devices. Let me keep strategic reserve of healthcare equipment, of medicines, because this stockpiling is going to help me because we don't know what is going to hit me next. So therefore, I think there is going to be a huge demand for it. Like people are only worried about oil and oil. Now I think this is going to be the new personal care, healthcare generally, public health in particular is going to assume great importance.
Yeah, you're right, sir, because personal protection has become indeed one of the most important things or relevant things today. And we, are hearing such great ideas from both of you on what India and Canada can do together. I'm really excited and passionate that we as a chamber and Mr. Prabhu, you were very kind to acknowledge the role of the chamber. And thank you for those kind words, and Minister, you too. And, we would really like to be the catalyst to be able to help these partnerships. And especially for the small and medium-sized enterprises, this is where they can come in, manufacturing these things. And as you said, Canada has put aside a fund for this. So we will work together. Post this webinar, we will be in touch with your office, both your offices, and see how we can combine the requirement in Canada and the manufacturing in India and help support that. Next, I just wanted to bring in, so we have put together 4 key representatives from the Indian and the Canadian business community, the 2 Indian businesses in Canada and 2 Canadian in India, to ask some questions to the both of you, since we have you here with us. And just for your information, it has been so popular that having, once we put out the invite, we have about 240 registered people and more joining in. So thank you both for being here with us today. So I'm now going to invite Ms. Kashmira Mevawala. She is the Head of Business Development and Chief Ethics Counselor for the Tata Group. So Kashmira, would you please come in and ask your question? I think she has one question for Minister Vic Fedeli. Kashmira, over to you. Could you unmute yourself, Kashmira? So maybe I think while, yeah, okay. Kashmira.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Over to you. Yes, we can.
Yes, so thank you for this, Nadira, and good evening and to everyone, and good morning to Minister. It's such a pleasure to be on the call with the Minister from Canada and with Suresh Prabhuji also. So thank you for this. And I had a question, Minister, for you. It's more with regard to really your role. I know that we're going through completely unprecedented times. And in Canada, and particularly in Ontario, how are you looking at job protection? And right now, of course, the focus is not so much on job creation as it is on job protection. So is this being looked at uniformly across industry, or are you addressing this sector-wise? And what do you think would be the government's primary role in job creation, job protection, particularly considering the times that we're really going through? Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Like most places worldwide, we have a state of emergency, we have lockdown, and we're asking people to work from home and stay in place. But what we did is have an essential business list. And so, as I mentioned earlier, manufacturing, global supply chain, all of those were left open. So, on the package, I guess you would say, water, food, and a roof over your head are the key priorities that families absolutely need. So we made sure we put the financial resources behind those as well. But that's why we left places like all of the petrochemical, all of the natural gas and all of the energy production, all of the grocery and food suppliers, all of the agricultural, anybody that was building buildings that had to do with food or food supply. So we kept all of those places open. Yes, so Ontario has a population of 14 million. In the last job report from Statistics Canada, we saw a decline of 400,000 jobs. So that's, of course, tragic. But between the provincial government of Ontario and the federal government, we have packages that we put together of supports for individuals, for families, for students, for young children, or parents with young children, under 12, and seniors. So those packages are available, but we've also worked with the federal government to make sure there's business supports. So provincially, we put 17 billion Canadian, which is about 3.3 billion for health products, 3.7 billion for direct business supports, and $10 billion to help businesses with cash flow, to help make sure that they stay open and can keep employees. So between the federal and provincial government, we've also come up with a rent program for commercial businesses, so that we have a rent supplement. The federal government pays 50%, the provincial government pays 25%, and the landlord pays 25%. So it's a period of several months where we can keep these businesses going. If they're open, they will help. This will help with them. If they're not open, this will at least give them a place to go in 3 months. So we think that between the federal and the provincial government, we've made sure that we've filled the gaps and that we have no overlap. So we've been working hand in hand. There's no politics involved whatsoever in any of this. Absolutely not. I must say I'm impressed both with all of the provinces and the federal government that there'll be plenty of time for that another year, but just not this year. And so I think Keshbira, that's how I would handle the question that you asked. I hope I addressed it, but that, we have seen that there are no gaps and no overlaps.
Thank you so much for that, Minister. We do understand that in these challenging times, one of the main things would be to ensure that, people are not deprived of jobs and income. And I think that's a challenge even for us here. So we just wanted to learn a bit from you. So thank you very much for that. Over to you, Nadira.
Thank you, Kashmira. Next, we have with us Mr. Jaimin Shah, and he is the co-founder and managing director of Dev IT. He, in fact, Jaimin has been one of the success stories in Canada. Minister, he is based in Toronto. He started a few years ago, and today he has a huge office and employing a lot of people in Canada. Jaimin has a question first for Shri Prabhu. So over to you, Jaimin, please. He will first ask Mr. Prabhu, and after Shri Prabhu answers, he also has a question for Minister Vikram. Over to you, Jaimin.
Okay. Thank you, Nadira, and thank you, Mr. Prabhu and Mr. Fideli. Let me first congratulate Mr. Prabhu that we are really happy and excited and really honored that we have a really fast-tracking government which is taking care of all of our need in this unprecedented time. As we all know that in COVID-19 situation, IT, as far as possible, is not so much affected, but there are many companies, and especially SME in IT, they are facing lots of cash flow issues, and they are also facing many order drop. So how the government of India is helping to ease out this cash flow? That is one. And second one, how these SME IT companies can get their outstanding payment from government contract so that they can ease out their cash flow issues.
Firstly, let me congratulate my friend, Mr. Shah, because he's company and his industry, the IT industry, is one of the big component of India's service industry. It exports most of their services. They are very important foreign exchange and has created so many jobs within India as well as on outside India for Indians as well as for others. Like I'm sure when you start your operations offshore activities, in US, for example, people miss out the point that Indian IT companies employ many Americans in the United States. So is the true for Canada. So this is a very important contribution by your industry and your company. So I want to congratulate you. It's absolutely true that we must support all economic activity so that they can sustain themselves. We must also strengthen them so that we can actually make them ready for future, which is going to be, I'm sure, there will be many opportunities coming up, particularly IT sector. I don't know whether you heard my initial remarks when I mentioned about your industry in particular. So I think we can clearly see a great future for your industry as well as for support that we must give. I would just say generally, because Prime Minister Modi has set up task force, which is headed by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. And once she gives a report, then we'll know exactly what's going to be the nature of the support that can come to us. But Prime Minister Modi has always been saying that this is a very important segment of India. And in fact, as Commerce Minister, I was also responsible for services export. The Service Export Promotion Council was under my ministry. So we have worked under you. We have set up 5,000 crores. Now, of course, because of the dollar change, you can say about $750 million for 12 champion sectors of economy, 12 champion sector services. And IT is obviously one of them. So this is another area with which we like to support it. So many times I had discussion with NASSCOM and we have told them to prepare a proper plan. So I'm sure we'll be able to work on that. But I fully agree with you that government must work with you. And this on the payment side, from the government to the companies. In fact, this is one direction which Prime Minister has given to all the line ministries, that whatever are the legitimate dues should be released to the vendors immediately. So I think that again should help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Though I was a chairman of NASSCOM Domestic Council who was looking after India market IT business. Yeah. Can I ask a question, Nadira?
Please, Chairman, go ahead. Minister Vic Fidelis.
This question is for Minister Vic Fidelis. Sir, first of all, let me congratulate you for coming out with really nice package for SME and their employees. As my office is in Toronto as well in Prince Edward Island, we have a nearshore center in Prince Edward Island, and we hire only Canadians in PI. We are not sending people from India till date. We are surviving there, and really good support. And my question is, in this period, as we all know that IT is becoming a very important aspect in any business, how Canadian government is preparing themselves to support non-IT business to adopt IT so that more and more IT jobs can be created locally there, as well as a government contract, so that we have more and more business going on.
Well, thank you very much for the question, Jamin. It's great to see you today. I'm glad to hear that things are continuing successfully. When we look, just the fact of what we're doing today, Ontario, Canada, is the #2 IT cluster in all of North America. 375,000 employees, 22,000 companies. We're #2 after Silicon Valley. And that strength, that system that we have in place here has allowed something like what's happening today. I will tell you, and this will be awkward from an Indian numbers statistic. I live in a little town of 4,800 people. That's where I am right now. I'm in my home office down a lonely highway, Highway 94 in northern Ontario, 3-4 hours from Toronto. And yet I'm able to communicate because of our robust system that we have built in Ontario. I'm able to communicate flawlessly with you in India today. I think when you look at what's happening now, I operate my Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade from my home in Corbeil, Ontario, with 3 devices, a hardened laptop, and this desktop. That's all it takes now in this day and age. So there's going to be a lot of changes, Jimmy, and when we look at both the IT sector and the non-IT sector, how we're all going to work in the future. Honorable Prabhu spoke about it earlier. One of his first comments that he made was that things aren't going to be the same. How we're going to have to make these decisions about, are we going to continue to operate the way we were or using this new technology? So Jamin, there's a real opportunity, and that's why we have set up this Ontario Together website, which we encourage you to go on. Yes, the first part is, can you make personal protective equipment? That's the first part of this. PPE, can you make PPE? And if so, it's very binary. Yes, no, I can make a mask, I can make a ventilator. But as you go down, we're now looking for, in questions 2 and 3, ideas, technological approaches and non-tech approaches as well. So this is a real opportunity for individuals and companies to go on and give us their ideas and see how we can work together. But if you go down even further, then there's the Ontario Together Fund, and that's the $50 million fund that I mentioned earlier. This money is available for companies to look at what can we do during COVID and post-COVID. So there is a tremendous amount of attention focused on that. My ministry, we didn't have to stand up a new department. It was an existing department that we use. So it's there for you and others to go on and see where you can help and where we can help. I hope that helped to answer.
Yeah, thank you. Over to Nadira.
Yeah, Jaimin. So thank you for that, Minister, and thank you, Jaimin. Next, we have Mr. Sandeep Asthana. He's a country head of Sun Life Financial, which is a big Canadian presence in India, and he has a question that he would like to share with Shri Suresh Prabhu. So, Prabhuji, I will hand it over to Sandeep Asthana to take this forward.
Thank you, Nadira. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and thank you, Minister Vic, and thank you, Shri Prabhu, for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I think whatever I've heard until now gives a lot of confidence that there's so much forward thinking, progressive thinking already going on that gives confidence in terms of the post-COVID era and in terms of how both economies will work together and progress together. My question, Shri Prabhu, is more on the capital side for Sphere of Financial Services Company. I think India is a country.
Sandeep, if you can be a little louder.
Okay. All right. So India as a country, I think, is at a stage where, it needs a lot of capital, and there is also global capital. I mean, Canada is a great supplier of capital, not just of technology and all the other products, but also a great supplier of capital, and it's an opportunity for us. Because in the post-COVID era, I think our economy is stressed, individual and corporate balance sheets are stressed, and it would help to get some foreign capital attracted into the country. And in that context, I was just wondering what structural reforms the government could look at, because the challenge with India still remains a bit, and I've been part of that experience in terms of just the labyrinth of rules and across all, foreign exchange and tax and others. There's an opportunity for India relaxing the rules, and I think it can bring in a lot of capital on its own. So just your thoughts, Minister, on that. Thank you.
If I heard you correctly, because there was did you talk about how to raise capital, right? Or how to get money?
how India could attract capital by reducing some of the laws and the rules and regulations. There's an opportunity for India that I see.
No, I understand. So actually, firstly, in fact, this morning as we speak, Prime Minister had taken a meeting to get how to get more foreign direct investment to India. So obviously, when we want to get more investment, we'll have to be very sensitive to the concerns of the investor, because investment presupposes there's an investor. An investor is not going to invest blindly, but he wants to invest in a manner that suits his own priorities. So knowing that, we'll have to work on sectoral reforms. Where all there are any roadblocks, there are any challenges, we have to remove them so that foreign direct investment can come in a big way. We need, and the money comes into the country, can come as FDI. That's largely in equity. It can also come into the portfolio investment,
Right.
the stock market. It can also come to the debt market, because of course, stock market, capital market can have both debt and equity component. It can come into that. It can also come as ECB. And therefore, I think there are many ways we can get the money into India. But I'm very sure that Sun Life should have never a problem, because sun is a life. In fact, there is no life without. So sun only makes sure that there is life. So you are sun and life both. So I think there should not be a problem. As a company like yours, which is one of the top companies in India, we have done quite well, and we are very proud of that investment that has happened in India over a period of time. I'm sure the investor would be as happy as those who work for that company in India are. So we really look forward to working on it. But point is well taken, that we'll have to work on a very aggressive strategy to make sure that we become winners out of this phase. And to do that, we'll have to work in such a manner that we remain competitive, because the same capital that we want to attract, there will be so many others who will like to compete for the same capital. So we'll have to work in a very aggressive manner. Keep in mind at all times that we have to keep revisiting our strategies, make them more and more investor friendly, and actually work on that.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Sandeep, anything else?
No, that was good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep, for being here. So, Minister Vic Fedeli, this is just one, just a personal comment from our end, from the Chamber's end, is that, considering technology will play a major role post-COVID, would you recommend a virtual bridge platform that can connect the SMEs of or the startup communities of both the countries, and we can work on products and ventures? Especially since they rely on funding and investor interest, this platform will invigorate the confidence of people.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because as Minister of Trade, which is one of the portfolios that I have, we have a huge trade department, and we've been meeting virtually, of course, to discuss how are we going to continue to talk to businesses worldwide in a short-term basis, where there are flights that are suspended, restaurants that are closed. So it's very difficult, if not virtually impossible, to conduct our trade discussions face-to-face. And so we really do see B2B platforms that are going to be necessary. We can almost envision, much I'm sure to the upset of airlines and or large convention facilities and hotels, that for a short while we may well be doing virtual trade shows. And that is something that we're looking at right now, because we want to make sure that the Ontario manufacturers and manufacturers in India, who we rely so much on imports from, by the way, that we have an opportunity to do mutual business, and we just can't wait for all of the opportunities to open up again. So Nadira, to your point, we are actually looking right at this moment about virtual trade shows, and to put it in your parlance, more of a B2B bridge.
And we are here, Minister, for whatever steps you want to take forward. Very happy to assist you and support you in this.
Excellent.
So now I just want to go to Rakesh Erath. He is the Senior Vice President of CGI. CGI is one of the biggest IT company, Canadian IT companies in India, based in Bangalore, amongst other offices, and they have, again, employ a lot of people here. And his question is to Shri Suresh Prabhu. So over to you, Rakesh.
So thank you, Thank you, Nadira, and thank you, Minister Vic Fedeli and Suresh Prabhuji. CGI is a global IT services company headquartered in Montreal, Canada. We have about 14,000 members, employees in India, and I'm pleased to inform you, Prabhuji, that 97% of the members are working from home today. Now, considering the impacts of COVID and the global slowdown, what relief measures is government considering for corporates in India, and in particular to the IT services organization? In other countries where we operate, governments are really supporting us to avoid layoff, and in many countries they are willing to pay part of the salary of employees whom we are considering to lay off to avoid the layoffs. I know it will be quite difficult in India for you to support large corporates, especially because we have such a large number of unorganized sector workers where the support should rightfully go to. But can you share some thoughts on relief measures for corporates in India?
You know, as I said earlier, that Prime Minister has already set up a task force under the chairmanship of the Finance Minister, who is supposed to be looking into all these issues. So I think I'm sure when she announces her package, you'll know the answer to this question. But I fully agree with you that there are other countries who have done this, so we'll have to wait for that announcement from the Finance Minister. I don't know exactly what that announcement is going to be. And but I'm sure I will take this as a takeaway from this and also communicate to the right people that this is what your concern is.
Thank you, Suresh Prabhuji, and we are obviously working very closely with NASSCOM on this. So thank you for your support, and thank you, Minister Vic Fedeli, for your thoughts as well as supporting us in Canada. As you would very well know, we are the largest IT services organization in Canada.
Nadira, can I make a quick comment about some of the supports? Would you mind?
Please
Okay,
go.
I'll try to make it short then.
Please.
In Ontario, what we're doing from our government is suspending any kind of payments that you would be making to the government. So we have, we call it WSIB, a workplace safety insurance that you pay. We have deferred that. It will save the business community $1.9 billion over the short period of time. We've suspended, for the most part, what's called the Ontario Employer Health Tax. We've lowered the threshold, so there's about 57,000 companies that will save money, well 30,000 won't pay any at all. We have suspended all of the various taxes. I have to look at the long list: gas tax, beer and wine tax, employer health tax, tobacco tax. All of these kinds of taxes are for the most part are being relieved, or we've granted relief for all of those. So there's a huge package that we put in, and then again, tied in hand with the federal government, there's a $2,000 a month per employee relief package on one hand, and there's a 75% payment by the federal government of employees' wages through an unemployment insurance. So you pick one or the other. So there are huge opportunities to come out of this with employees that are ready to get back to work, that have, yes, everyone has suffered a bit, but there will be a lot of payments along the way. Thanks, Nadir.
Thanks, Minister. So thanks to all the four representatives who gave us the questions. Actually, we have, as I said, so many registrants, and our chat box is flooded with questions, but we can't take those questions now due to the time limits. But what we will do is, and that I speak to all people who have sent in their questions, we will make a list of your questions, send it both to Minister Vic Fedeli's office and Minister Suresh Prabhu's office, and we'll ask them to consider, and whatever the answers we get, we will share with you. But due to lack of time, my apologies. Just that all the four who were here are our board of directors of the ICBC. We are very happy to have them. We also have with us many more board directors who are here. Arun Pandya, head of Air Canada, Sanjeev Mittal, Scotia Bank. We have Rontu Basu. We have, there's so many, from Vinay from Maple Assist in Canada, Saurabh Bhatia. There are a lot of, I can't even take all the names now. that I may leave someone out, but they're all here with us. Also, Government of Saskatchewan representatives are with us. Government of New Brunswick's representatives are with us, as also Victor Thomas, who heads CIBC, our partner chamber in Canada. So I'm thankful to everybody who has joined us today. And Minister, with your permission, also I would like to acknowledge and thank the support of your Ontario office in India. So they have one office here in Delhi, which is now being managed by Kapil, and one in Mumbai with Ravikant. And they have been very active here, and they have really helped the chamber in all our efforts and endeavors. So I would like to thank all of them also. And if I can now quickly ask both Minister Prabhu and Minister Fedeli to just give us some closing remarks, brief closing remarks, and then I can just say thank you again to both of you before we end this very fabulous session. I could go on for another 1 hour, but I think it's, this is enough for this time. We'll definitely have some more follow-up. So over to you, Minister Prabhu, and then Minister Fedeli.
Thank you very much, all the participants, for giving such good ideas as to what we can do. I was just watching some of the messages which people are trying to chat and give some messages. I think we work on those ideas, including what has just come out of your saying it, but also not just audio, but also we have gone through the message, and we'll really take a note of that. I can very clearly see there's so much of interest in developing this bilateral relationship through trade, through investments, through commerce. I think that's a great opportunity. In fact, ministers and the governments can only provide blessings. It's a business which has to move in. They have to do this business, and we can actually provide a support as governments. So I think I'm very sure we really look forward to that private sector initiative, which will really drive this relationship more as we go along. And I'm sure there'll be many more dimensions that can be added to this. But I assure you one thing, that we'll work on it. I would request the minister to come here from Ontario so that we can actually organize sort of a roundtable and we can really take this forward. Of course, I always look forward to coming to Canada, but I don't know when. Firstly, the flights have to start, and then the social distancing may not keep our distance a little bit far away than what it is today. But I'm sure the distance may be far, but we'll try to bridge this gap as soon as possible through a good business that can be done together. Thank you very much. And I think happy rest of the day for you, and good night for my friends from India.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. You have been wonderful, and the kind of guidance and advice and your support to the chamber always has been very much appreciated by you. Thank you for all your efforts, all the work that you do, not only in your constituency, for people all over India. We really appreciate it. Continue doing that work. Continue sending us the WhatsApp messages so that we can spread the word around to all our members, both in India and Canada, for all the good work that you do. Many, many thanks to you. Minister Vic Fedeli, any closing remarks from you, please?
Well, again, thank you so much to the ICBC. It's the input that we get from the business community that has helped inform us in making all of these important decisions. The supports that we were able to give only came through guidance from great organizations worldwide, such as ICBC and all of the chambers of commerce and boards of trade. The business community really is a fabulous contributor to help us in guiding us through these very, very difficult times. Minister, I look forward to returning. We were planning a mission to India in November. I intend to be there every single year. That's our commitment to our community. We have more than 800,000 people of Indian origin who are here in Ontario, 52,000 students, all eager to get back to work and eager to get out and about in our parks and recreation and get back to work. So we look forward to that opportunity, and we just genuinely are appreciative of the warm and loving relationship that we have as our two countries have, and we're eager to get back to business. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share today.
Thank you, Minister, and both to Minister Prabhu and Minister Fedeli. 30th November is what we have tentatively blocked as our annual convention. God willing, everything is fine by then. Whether we do it visually, whether we have just 10 people in a room, but we will have our annual convention, and we want both of you there. So please block your dates from now, because we need to get back together soon, and hopefully it'll be again people to people, and this virus will no longer affect us. But thank you so much. And Minister Fedeli, just one interesting comment, that when I was reading your profile, it says that Minister Fedeli is focused on fiscal prudence and restoring hope and restoring solvency. On this note, let me end this session, that this is all that what today is about: restoring hope, restoring solvency. And we, together with your support and all the people who have come here today, let us hope for a better tomorrow. And both of you have left us with so much to discuss, so much to think about, that whether it is lockdown or no lockdown, there's a lot of work for all of us. So looking forward to working even better, closer between India and Canada. Thank you, everybody. Good night, good morning, all the very best. Thank you very much for having me.
Nadira,
Bye-bye.